Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad al-Mabuthi rahmatan al-Alameen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi al-tayyibin al-tahirin wa ala kulli man istanna bi sunnatihi wa ihtada bi hadihi li yawm ad-din wa sallama tasliman kathiran thumma amma ba'd. We continue with the lessons or with the series that we started where we were speaking about the topic or the topics of hasad, envy, evil eye, possession and magic. And I apologize about last week. I wasn't able to make it. I had some very difficult personal circumstances that allowed me to attend. And today, inshallah ta'ala, what we'll be doing, we'll be actually resuming and concluding the topic that relates to the unseen as far as spirituality and jinn is concerned. Of course, following from last week, what we did last week is that we spoke about the definition of possession. We spoke briefly about the different opinions of the ulama, whether possession takes place or not. We spoke about the causes of possession, what can cause someone to be possessed, and we gave some examples of these causes. And we spoke about the different proofs that relate to that. الذين يأكلون الربا لا يقومون إلا كما يقوم الذي يتخبطه الشيطان من المس لا يقومون إلا كما يقوم الذي يتخبطه الشيطان من المس ذلك بأنهم قالوا إنما البيع مثل الربا. That's because those who eat the riba do not get resurrected on their judgment except like those who have been touched or have been possessed by the shaitan. ذلك بأنهم قالوا إنما البيع مثل الربا. That's because they said verily sale is like usury, and إنما I think I said inna last week. إنما البيع مثل الربا وأحل الله البيع وحرم الربا. And Allah has made permissible sale and has prohibited usury. Also, we spoke about some proofs from the Sunnah, the story that relates to the black lady that was narrated by Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh, and his student Ata, and how she was guaranteed Jannah for her accepting to endure through the pain of possession. And the other hadith that speak about the ruqya, the lady that the Rasul ﷺ made ruqya for her son, and so forth. There are a few points that I want to mention just to finish off the issue of possession. Is that some people that are under the assumption or under the belief that if you are possessed, then basically you are completely controlled by Satan, and therefore you can blame everything on him. And that's something that I have experienced in some cases. The husband will come to me and will say to me, please speak to my wife and explain to her that I'm not in control. Or the wife will come and will say, husband, that I'm not in control. In reality, the effect of magic and the effect of possession can cause physical symptoms, can cause psychological symptoms, but it cannot take away from you will. And if this issue was that simple, then the magicians and those who use magic, they would have been able to control all the people all the time, however they want. The role of the jinn and the role of Satan's, as far as possession is concerned, is to put the maximum amount of pressure that can be put on a person to push him into a decision that he doesn't like. So, for example, they can play a role in you misunderstanding things. They can give you different evil whispers. They can make you see dreams. For example, if we're talking about partners, where you can see your partner betraying you, you can see them letting you down and so forth. They can make you suspicious of what they do, but at the end of the day, you choose whether to listen to it or not to listen to it. And this issue will be similar to the issue of addiction. Someone who's addicted to a particular type of drug, when he has the full determination to stop it, he can stop it. It will be difficult only at the beginning. But as you learn about the tricks and what they do, then it becomes much easier. So people who go around and saying, Shaitan made me do that, or the Jinn made me do that, this is an excuse that is not acceptable. Probably it could be acceptable when you don't know about the fact that they're plotting towards you, divorcing your wife, for example, or towards you hating your mother, or towards you hating your father. But once you know about it, then you should know better than you listening to all the whispers that stream through your mind. That's something that is very important I wanted to mention, so no one can use that, the issue of possession as an excuse for the evil tendencies that they have. The issue of sihr is huge, and as you can see, I have prepared different things, and I'm trying to see what is the most important thing to cover, and then we'll cover it inshallah ta'ala. And because of that, what I want to do first, after we speak about the definition of sihr, we're going to talk about the signs through which we can detect if someone is a magician or not. And we're going to explain them as well. And then later on, inshallah, we're going to talk about the different types of spells that can be put on people. And I've got some examples of some things that are usually used. First of all, linguistically, what does the word sihr mean? لغة هو صرف الشيء عن حقيقته إلى غيره. It is you changing the state of one thing from its original state into the opposite state or into a different state. So for example, and sometimes it's used to refer to what is khafi, what cannot be seen. And that's why the Rasul ﷺ said in the hadith, and when he used that word in the hadith, he used it in its linguistic sense. He says, إِنَّ مِنَ الْبَيَانِ لَسِحْرًا. He goes, verily from rhetoric and allegory, they can have the effect of magic. Why did Rasul say that? What happened is that two men came, and they came together, and then one of them was very eloquent. So at the beginning, when they were speaking to the Rasul, he was introducing to the Rasul, and he mentioned all the beautiful traits about this man. He actually put it in a way, and he organized it in such a style that when you hear it, you know that this man is the best person you can ever come across. And then within the same gathering, a problem broke between these two. And they became what? They became upset with each other. So the one, he began to speak negatively of that man, of the man that he praised earlier. And listed all the negative traits and the bad traits that he is it, because of the liquid thing, the worst man on the face of the earth. And the Rasul looked at him and he smiled and he said, Inna min al-bayani la sihra. Verily eloquence can have the impact of magic on the one that is here. Why? Because it changes your state, it changes the state of things. Instead of good, you start thinking bad. And instead of thinking bad, you start thinking good. Also, because sihr changes the state of the person from what he is normally on to the opposite one. And that is the aim of magic in the first place. The aim of magic is for you to carry out what the other person wants to carry out. And for example, when a lady goes to the magician and she asks for a spell to be put, and that happens a lot, by the way. What is she doing? She is not content with him. She feels that does not love her. And therefore she will ask him to do something. He can change his feeling towards her from being negative and neutral to being positive and loving. So what you're doing with sihr, you are changing the state from one, you are changing the state of the person from one state into another, and mostly it is actually the opposite state. What is the definition of sihr Islamically? The ulama have different in relation to the definition of sihr, because magic itself or sihr is so huge and has so many different areas within it. But one of the best definitions, it says, هو عبارة عن رقى وطلاسم وتعاويذ يعظم فيها غير الله. Because sihr is a combination of ruqa. What does the word ruqa mean? Is utterances that you say. وطلاسم. What are طلاسم? طلاسم are expressions and symbols that you cannot understand, that no person cannot understand. I'm going to show you some examples of them later. وتعاويذ, and you seeking protection, where you are glorifying other than Allah. يعظم فيها غير الله. You're actually glorifying someone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وغالبا ما تكون كفرية. And most of the time it will contain this belief in it. Alright? يقصد بها أذى الناس. Or يقصد بها الأذى. The aim behind it is to harm. The aim behind it is to harm. Of course, this would include the loved one as well. And you'll say to me, how does it include a love spell if the aim behind it is to harm? It is actually, even a love spell is considered as harm as far as we're concerned, because you are forcing something onto someone. That's one. Second, the person that gets the spell put on him will go through a lot of pain go through a lot of pain psychologically, will go through a lot of suffering, and therefore what are you doing? Harming. And therefore, magic in all its types is actually a type of harm. A type of harm. And the intention that someone has in relation to it does not justify the means that take place. Because as far as the person that goes to the magician is concerned, he may not be aware of what happens in the process of making that change. But this is not an excuse for you to go there. Because the Rasul ﷺ and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and all the divine religions have instructed humans not to deal with magic and not to use it. How do we identify a magician? And today magicians are very popular, and magicians across centuries, they have different titles and they have different names and they have different looks as well. And you'll be surprised how many magicians exist in the Western world. And don't worry about the Eastern world. Just in the West, there is an estimation that there is around 60,000 magicians just in France by itself. 60,000 magicians. And a quarter of the German people, and these are statistics collected by them, believe in magic and believe in the impact of magic. And they say around 13 or 20, I can't remember, from the French, they read the horoscopes and they believe it. And they believe in it. But because of the limitation, we cannot go through all the relations of magic in the West, but we'll talk about the signs. One of the common signs that everyone knows is that a magician is someone that asks for your name and asks for the name of the mother. So you go to him and you say, I have a problem. And the sad thing is that they call him Sheikh, they call him a Sheikh. And I don't know how they earned that title. Linguistically, the title Sheikh, linguistically, okay, can be used to someone that is very wealthy and therefore is like a leader, is a financial leader. Or someone that is very old, that is a Sheikh. Or someone that is a leader of his tribe. These are the three linguistic usages of the word. And then in addition to that, the Islamic culture added the religious leader and gave him the title of a Sheikh. Where a magician took the title of the Sheikh, how he claimed it, how they used it, I don't know. And I cannot trace it. This is from the deception that they use against people. And from the deceptions that people accept upon themselves as well. So they go, they say, Ya Sheikh. How could you call him a Sheikh and he is disbelieving in Allah? How could you call him a Sheikh and he's disbelieving in Allah? It happened to me a few days ago. I was talking to a person. He says, spoke about a particular sect that live in Syria. He said, there's a Sheikh there. And I said, but he is Nusayr. He said, yes. And I said, and he tarnishes the Qur'an. He said, how could you call him a Sheikh? And the man just said, that's what they call him. I said, don't call him a Sheikh, call him a Sahir. Say to me, you went to a magician. But don't call him a Sheikh. So people go to him and, for example, sit and will say, I have a problem. And they'll talk about the problem. I have a lot of bad dreams. I see ghosts, I hear sounds, whatever. He'll say, okay, and then he'll ask for details. What would he ask for? Normally what is commonly known amongst people is they ask for the name of the person and the name of his mother. But really, this is not the only thing they ask for. Magicians have different ways through which they inquire about the person. So sometimes they'll ask for the name of the father. And sometimes they'll ask for a date of birth. And sometimes they'll ask for the place or the suburb from which you come. Why do they do that? What's the purpose of asking for these details? What they are doing is basically doing a search on you. And that's why they need this information. Exactly like you call up any department, any government department, and they want to verify your identity. What do? They ask you for your full name, you give them your given name, you give them your last name, and then what do you give them? Your date of birth, the place of what? The place where you live, your personal address or your residential address, correct? In them doing that, what do? They identify you. And then they'll bring up your... The Jinn do the same thing. Because this person the sick man came to this person and he wants him to help him. The first thing he needs to do is to find out what's wrong with the person. So he'll get this information from him. And usually they ask for the name of the mother. Some mashaykh, they say, is because they don't believe in the lineage of the father. No, that's not the reason why. They ask for the name of the mother because this will make it very unlikely for them to make a mistake. Why? Because you cannot lie about your mother, but there can be mistakes with your father. And the jinn or this particular magician, he wants to make sure that he gets the right person. And therefore what happens is that they start inquiring about you, or some sort of a file will come up for you, and then they will start talking about, yes, I know you, you are like this, you are like that, and they'll start speaking to them. A spell has been put on you by fulan, and they'll start going through your details. This sign is a sign that can be used not only by magicians, but even by people who just speak to jinn. Because not all those who speak to jinn are actually magicians. Because the magic is actually a type of contract that takes place between the person and the devils that he is dealing with. And sometimes a possessed person, and that sometimes happens, he can be possessed so bad that no one will be able to help him. And then what will happen, the jinn inside him will start telling him, okay, listen, we're not going to leave you, but we'll help you. We'll help you generate money, for example. And therefore, if someone comes to you, you can give him information about what's wrong with them. This person is not technically a magician, because we're going to go through some of the methods they use. He did not call upon them. They're already in him. And that's why sometimes you have some people that call themselves psychic. Okay? I'm not going to generalize, but some of these people are actually possessed. They're actually possessed in the first place. So this question that gets asked about the name and the name of the mother is just to find out information from you and for them to research and see what's wrong with you. That's the first thing that gets done. The other and that's a clear sign, is for them to take something from your traces. Something from you. Like what? Like the hat I'm wearing. Okay. The singlet that I am wearing. Piece of the hair of my bead, of my hair, of my eyebrows, any hair on your body. They'll ask for something that contains what we call in Arabic athar, some of your traces. It can be sweat, it can be clothes that has your sweat in it, it can be a hair, and sometimes it can be blood, depending on what they're asking and what type of spell they want to put on the actual person. So, okay, do you want me to put a spell on your husband? Or do you want me to put a spell on fulan? I need you to bring me some of his hair. And then the person will have to go and get that. Why do they do that? Because this is like the DNA through which you get identified in the magic world as well. So they'll know you, and then what will happen is that a special type of spell will be prepared to suit your body, your soul. Because people have different bodies and people have different souls, and can be traced back to you. Another thing that you can notice when you are before a magician or sitting with a magician, is that they often speak in a language you cannot understand. And I'm not talking about, for example, he's an Arab and you are an Indian. No. I'm talking about a language that you, even if he's from your own people, you will not be able to understand. He'll sit there and say, okay, this is my problem. He asks for your name and the name of your mother. Sit there and he'll start mumbling and say words that you can't understand and you cannot make out. These words are actually the words of summoning the jinn and calling upon them and starting the contact between him and between them, and that's an indication that this man is a magician. Another thing that they do is that they use symbols. They use symbols. You look at it and you will not be able to identify it. And when you look at it, you'll feel that it is weird. You'll feel that it's different. And what I did, I got plenty examples of that. For example, this. This is a Jewish spell. And as you can see, it's got different types of symbols that are placed in it. And the symbols are not only limited to this, many of them. And inshallah later on, more and more of them. When you start seeing these weird and strange symbols, you should straight away know that this person is not a person that you should trust and you should leave straight away. He is a magician. Another thing that they can use is that they can give you a special type of incense. Okay, you know, like in the West, we don't have the concept of incense is not commonly used, but it's like bakhur, something similar to bakhur. He'll give you a special type of incense, and there's different types of incenses. Okay, and he'll say, take it, and I want you to burn this. And I want you to burn that, for example, over 3 days. Or I want you to burn that over 7 days. And with that, he'll not give you anything that relates to the Qur'an. No Qur'an, no ayat, no surah, nothing. This is an indication that this man is a magician. Because what he is doing is actually offering to the jinn the type of incense that they like. And he's burning the house so he can attract them come to this particular house. Often you'll find that these incenses, he has already read on them some of his spells. So when you burn it, the effect of the spell takes place in the whole house. Another thing that they do, which is common, is that they ask you for specific animals. Sometimes they ask for animals in general, and sometimes they ask for specific animals. And sometimes what they do, they ask for specific qualities in animals. And for example, he might ask you to get a sheep, or he might ask you to get a goat, and he might ask you to get a rooster. And they always try to make as much money as they can from you. So they look at you, and of course the jinn will tell him he's wealthy, charge him. And they'll do that. Yeah, they do that. They'll do that. He say, charge. And sometimes the shayateen will specify to them what amount to charge the person. And will say, I want you to give me a sheep. I want you to give me a camel. And then the person will have to get this animal to them. And sometimes they will specify what type of animal they want. Sometimes they specify what qualities they want in the animal. They want it to be black. And some of them will ask for it to be red. And some of them they might ask for it to be black, but have some whiteness in it. Some people, and some of the mashayikh say they do that only to charge people money. That's not the only reason. Sometimes that's playing up with the person to make it hard of him to get what they want. But primarily when they do that because the jinn that they're dealing with would have for this particular type. Because the jinn in their classifications, and even of its classification, it does relate to different colors. So what will happen is that they will ask you for the color that this particular king likes. So sometimes it can be black, sometimes it can be red, sometimes it can be blue, sometimes it can be green, sometimes it can be yellow, depending on what they want. But most of the time, what they use is black, red. Then what happens? This animal gets brought, and then after that, there is the process of what? Of making the offer to the jinn. You'll find that a magician will not let you slaughter the animal yourself. He'll have to be the one that has to slaughter it. Why? Because when you get an animal to make it halal, what do? You say Bismillah, and then you slaughter it. He will not say Bismillah. And if he's going to give it to you, and you're a Muslim, and you're a good gullible Muslim that you don't know what is happening, what are you going to do? You're going to say Bismillah, and that's not going to work that way. It can't work that way. It will wreck the work. So what has to happen? He'll have to slaughter it. And when he slaughters the animal, they'll do more than one way. Sometimes he will mention the name of the devil that he's dealing with, and then he'll slaughter this and say, I'll slaughter it for the name of that particular devil, wa'iyadhu billah. And sometimes what they do, and that's a method that is commonly used, is that they'll have to get a special type of object, I'm not going to say what it is, and they put it in the mouths, and then they close the mouths. And then what happens is that the mouth gets locked up. And then they slaughter the animal. After that is that they'll take the blood, some of them they'll take the blood and they will wipe you with the blood. Because what is happening now? What happened is this. You have just slaughtered for other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you have just made this belief. You're a kafir now. And taking the blood of that has been slaughtered for that particular king, and they're putting it on your body to tell the king, listen, he's seeking cure through what? Through what has been sacrificed for you. And therefore the organ will have to be wiped with blood. And then upon doing this, the spell will get broken. Why? Because you have made the sacrifice and you ask for the blessing for what has been slaughtered for other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore they'll break the spell. Or what they might do, and something that they do, so a lot of them do often, is that they'll make a deal with for 3 months, 5 months, and then go back into you again. And he'll come back. Happen again. And goes, all right, we have to slaughter again. And you'll say, okay, it's going to cost you that much. The person will keep on. The jinn, because some types of the jinn, they like particular parts of the animal, request a particular animal to be to them, can eat it, or sometimes they might force the magician or the sick to eat from it. Something what they might do is that they might tell you have to throw this in a particular place. And they'll give you specifications. For example, now, I want you to take it and throw it in a well. So, for example, you'll find a well and they throw it in a well. Or they'll say, throw it in the graveyards, and they'll throw it in the graveyards. And so they'll specify to you. And I'm not going to say the specific descriptions because I love you all, but I don't know who's listening to me. Okay? They'll specify what type of grave, and then you'll have to take it and put it in a particular type of grave. And upon doing this, the spell will start to take effect. Another sign that you can detect them through is that they will ask the person to stay in a dark room for a number of days. 3 days. And sometimes 7 days, and sometimes more. They'll say, you want to get cured, then you have to sit in a room where there's no light of the sun. So they close the door on you, and you'll stay in the room for 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. And subhanAllah, I know a lady that, she's an old lady that did that, and she'll be sick sometimes. And she'll scream and shout, but she's not allowed to go out. And this is an indication that they're dealing with, not any type of jinn, they're dealing with devils. They're dealing with filthy devils. And this period where you're staying in the stage of them coming, living in the room with the person, and then entering into the body of the person, and then fighting with the jinn that is inside him so they can get him out. He will ask you to throw particular things in particular places. Allah, it's sad because I'm talking about things that I have heard and I have seen people do it. Here in Australia, they'll say, take this and throw it in the sea. It'll be broken. And the person will take it and will throw it in the sea. Take this and throw it in the graveyard. Take this and throw it behind you. Take this and put it in that particular place. This is an indication that these people are actually using magic. Another sign, especially with those dealing with devils, is that they'll tell you can't pray. You can't pray for 3 days. You can't pray for 7 days. You can't pray for 40 days. They'll specify the period that they want, and they'll put a condition on you not to play Qur'an in the house. Not all of them. Those that deal with devils primarily, they'll do that. But the problem is, most of the Muslims in the first place, and that's something that is sad to say, are not very close to their religion. So Aslan, playing the Qur'an is not something that happens on a regular basis. Or even when they play, no one listens and doesn't get put properly on things, or they'll listen to when they're doing the work, computer, and she's in the kitchen, or she's minding the children, and so forth. But they'll tell you, despite that, you cannot pray for that period. And you cannot play Qur'an for that period. Allah, I know a lady, until now she's not cured. I have not seen her personally, because she likes dealing with these people, and she was banned from playing Qur'an in the house. And once by mistake, one of the members of the house, they played Qur'an, and she went out from her room crazy. Stop that. The one that is possessed will not be able, not all those who are possessed, but the one who's possessed by filthy jinn or by devils will not be able to handle listening to the Qur'an. Will actually really affect them. Another thing they can do is that they can give you papers that has the symbols on them, and they'll ask you to burn it. And they'll ask you to burn it. Another thing they will do, and that's something that freaks out a lot of people. That's how sometimes they do that to prove to you that they are good. Is that they'll ask you for your name, they'll ask you for the name of your mother, and they would not have seen you ever in their lives. They don't know who you are, they don't know anything about you. And then they will start talking to you as if they are with you. So they'll tell you about the habits that you have. They'll tell you about what you like and what you dislike. And sometimes what they do is that they'll speak about marks that are on your body. Wallah, there's a sister that said to me, he told me what kind of gown, what color gown I wear in particular nights. And they'll tell you the most intricate detail about you. You have a shami in that place. You have that habit. If you open up your thigh here, you have that mark, and then you'll be stunned. You have so many children, you have to do this, you do that. In your bank, you have that much, and no one knows in your bank. These, whenever you hear them speaking like this, what they're doing, they're trying to prove to you that I'm real, I know what I'm doing. You should trust me and you should deal with me. As soon as you hear them speaking like this, then you should know that these people are magicians and you should not deal with them. And you should leave that place. Another thing that they do with females, and that's something exclusive to females, or can happen to males depending on the gender of the magician, is that they may request to have the lady by herself. They'll say, okay, I'll treat her, but she has to sit by herself. Or they may request for the lady to sleep over in their house. They'll say, okay, she's going to have to sleep in a room, and they'll say she's going to have to sleep in that room. And then overnight, she'll be back and her spell will be broken. What will happen then is that there will be a trap for the lady, and what can happen is that this person can actually perform zina with that lady. And sometimes, of course, people will not be willing to do so. Sometimes what they do, they give him drugging substances. And they'll get locked out, and then they'll do the fahisha with them. And then upon that, they'll let him go the next day. And then the person will realize, or the person may not realize. And sometimes what they'll do, for example, with ladies, is they'll ask to touch them. And they'll ask to touch particular parts of the bodies. For example, the chest up, the thighs area, the back, and so forth. And they'll actually say that this is part of the work, and it has to be done, and they'll try to massage it. And the purpose behind it is to satisfy the desire from this particular lady. And this can be caused by two things. This can be caused by a personal initiative by the magician himself, who's interested in the lady and he thinks that she's good looking, and therefore he wants to get more of her. And then he will say that, and then that will be done. And sometimes this may be the request of the jinn that he's dealing with. Where they'll ask him, we want you to do that. Where they'll actually like her, and actually they'll like to come next to her. So that they'll tell them that she's going to have to do that. And then they'll tell him, you're going to have to sleep with her. Or you'll have to do this, or you'll have to do that. And people, unfortunately, fall into that trap. Not into the trap of zina, but into the trap of touching. Wallah, I know a couple of people. I know a lady, mashallah, she's good looking. And I went to see them. The whole house had a problem, and she was talking about what has been done before. She went to a sheikh before, one of the sheikh that she went to, and she goes and she said to me, and I said, and he was so nice, and I say, yeah, what was he doing? And they said, and he asked to touch me. And I looked at her and I said, what do you mean? She goes, and he asked to touch me, and she told me where. She goes, he touched me from the top up, and even around the thighs area. And I was shocked, and some people are naive. And I said to her, he didn't have to touch you. And she said, he didn't? I said, no. I said, he did that because he wanted to, he had a desire towards you. But your treatment, even with magic, would not require that. Even if they want to break the spell, touching the person in such a way is not something that will be even by magicians. But since they are in a world of sin, and they have no fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the first place, they will not be ashamed from doing anything. And the sad thing is that some people, they do fall for it, and they let them touch them and then massage them. And therefore, when you hear someone saying that, then straight away you should know that this person is not someone that fears Allah. Because even with ruqya, the people that will have, for example, to touch the person, and I don't like this, is that, for example, sometimes you have to, they'll wear thick gloves, and they'll put the hand on the head, for example, or if the person becomes too old, they'll have to press him. This concept of touching and massaging and all this is not relevant to the treatment whatsoever. It's only when you want to suppress them, and that's why you need someone. In particular situations, or some people that might put a sheet, or they'll put the Qur'an and they put the hand on the person, or they'll wear thick gloves and put the hand just on the head. That happens sometimes. But what these people do is actually a sign of the fact that they are magicians, and a lady should not allow anyone like this to touch her. But the sad thing is that sometimes people are desperate, and sometimes the people know what is happening to them, but they ignore it on purpose because they want to be relieved from the pain that they are going through. Another thing that can give you is papers that look red. And these papers will be actually papers where the spells have been written in a saffron type of ink. And then they'll ask you to melt it, or they'll ask you to put it in water and then drink it, or they'll ask you to burn it, or they'll ask you to hang it in a particular place. Now, where's the problem? The problem is actually in what is written. Using the saffron as ink is something that is permissible in Sharia. Okay, all the ulama have agreed to that. So for example, if you use saffron ink and you write verses from the Qur'an, and you put it in water and then give it to the person, that's something that is permissible with the agreement of all the ulama. There's no khilaf in relation to that. Even Ibn Baz, may Allah have mercy upon him, Ibn Jibreen, Ibn Uthaymeen have given fatwa and they said there's no problems with it whatsoever. But the problem is in the fact that they are doing what? That they are writing spells with this particular type of saffron ink. And that's something they can use. Another thing they can do is that they can ask you to commit a sin. They'll ask you to listen to music. Well, these days they don't have to ask for that. Everyone listens to music. Okay. They'll ask you to commit, and this will be specified by the jinn that they are dealing with. Sometimes also another sign that you can know them through it is that they'll make you offers. Like you'll go to them and you'll say, I've got this problem. They say, yes, there's a spell on you, has been casted down, and we have to deal with it. But if you want, I can also reverse the spell. Or they say, if you want, I can make instead of that a love spell between you and someone that you like. Make you deals. Why? Because they are generally what we can call cheap businessmen. And they want to make what? Make money out of you. So why not include more than one thing together? And wallah, I know a person, unfortunately, a number of sisters that are from the same family, they get a special price from the magician that they visit. They get a special price. So for example, $500 per session, they get $200. Why? Because that's how often they go. So one of their sisters went, the female said to her, I'm going to make specials for you. I usually charge $500, but since you're I'm going to give you $200 for this particular session. This is from the signs that these people deal with jinn. Another thing that is from the signs is they'll have a specific type of animal with them. They'll have a black dog. You'll enter the room, for example, and you'll find that there's a black dog. And some of them they'll have, for example. And they'll ask for the animal to touch you. But of wolves, jinn gets. That's why jinn can possess anything they like. But in reality, what's happening here is that this wolf will actually, the jinn will be inside the wolf or will be inside that dog. And then he'll have to make the contact. He'll have to make that contact with you. Another thing that they have, and I'll try to find it quickly, is that they will wear, some of them, not all of them, will wear a special type of ring. And then as soon as you see this kind of rings, you should leave that place, even before they speak to you. I hope yeah, there he is. Something similar to that. All right? See, it's got different symbols. You want to zoom on it, Ibrahim? Well, it's okay. Yeah? See, it's got different symbols on it. And this actually will be the spell that they use. So when he wears it, he actually has the servants of the ring. So as long as he's wearing the ring, then the servants of the ring from the jinn, whether it is a king or a particular type of jinn, they will be always present with him. And he'll have to wear the ring Because if he's not wearing the ring, they will not obey him. And the ring will often have, as you can see, different symbols that relate to the type of jinn that he is using. These quickly are the main signs that relate to or through which you can identify a magician. So you don't have an excuse. Everyone that is here, you don't have an excuse, inshallah. Inshallah, you'll never have to see these people. And whoever you hear him telling you that went to a person, that any of these signs are found in him, then it is your duty to tell him that you're going to a magician and you are actually disobeying Allah and disobeying the Rasul ﷺ and committing one of the major deadly sins. That's why the Rasul said, إِيَّاكُمْ وَالْمُوبِقَاتِ إِيَّاكُمْ وَالْمُوبِقَاتِ I warn you from the mubiqat. What are the mubiqat? Some people that translate them as enormities. But the mubiqat are actually what you can call them similar to the deadly major sins. And one of them is polytheism, and one of them also is working in magic and telling you are going to someone that deals with that and you should stop this right away, otherwise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to punish you. And you may end up losing your religion day. What are the different types of spells that can be put? We'll speak about them quickly. People say that separation magic, the separation spell is more common. I believe that the love spell is more common. Today on the internet, they even have websites on the internet where they will sell you spells. And one of the type of spells is the mahabba, sihr al-mahabba, love potion. And if you just think a bit, you'll find that this concept is found in the cartoons a lot. They speak about love potions or charming potion. This is actually magic. This is actually a representation of magic. And what happens is that a lady or a man, can happen by birth by the way, but it's more often women, will go, and I'm speaking of this just based from experience, I'm not being biased. They'll go to the magician, they'll ask him to put a spell on someone so they can love them more. What are the reasons for that? Many different reasons. Sometimes he's not good to his wife, doesn't treat her properly, so make sure that he treats her properly. Sometimes he's rich and she wants to get his money. Sometimes, and that's advice for the brothers, he will say, I want to marry someone else on you. And she wants to make sure that this doesn't happen, so she'll go and she'll ask for a spell to be put on her husband. And then he will ask her for his name, the name of his mother, and then he'll ask something from his traces, his hair, something from his sweat, something from his blood, and then the spell will be put on the person. And then suddenly that man will become a man that cannot stay in a room without his wife being out of his sight. And that's one of the ways that you can find out. Suddenly, he just can't. She's not here. He can't. If he's not looking at her, then he will not be happy. He will feel distressed, and that's what they do. He'll feel distressed. And once a brother noticed that on himself, and then he went and he spoke to the Sheikh and he said, he goes, I can't go to work. I can no longer go to work. As long as I am at work, I have to call her. If I'm not calling her, I have to go and see her in person. If I don't do that, then I'll blow up from inside. He'll get irritated. This is actually one of the signs that relate to that. Sadly, to them, not to us, this doesn't always work. So for example, she might ask for a spell for him to love her, or she might ask for a spell for him to hate all women and love her alone. What can happen is that the spell for him hating other women and loving her alone can actually cause him to hate all women, including her. And sometimes what happens is that the spell will be for him to love her and then it will not work. And then he'll end up hating her. So she'll be like someone that shot himself in the foot. Another type of spell is the spell of separation. That's very common, unfortunately. We see a lot of this in our, like personally, because we deal with our community, we see a lot of this in our community. Spells to separate husbands from wives. Spells to stop marriage. I'm going to speak about them. Spells to separate fiancés from each other. This is very common in our community, and I'm speaking about my personal experience. And that can only come from a person that has so much hatred towards another person. A lady that sees her husband happy, that sees a husband happy with their wife, she will not like that. A mother that is jealous from the relationship between her son and his wife, and often it's relatives. And very often it is actually relatives. Sometimes can be a relative, sometimes can be close, sometimes can be far. And what they'll do, and that's what the Qur'an spoke about it. فَتَعَلَّمُونَ مِنْهُمَا مَا يُفَرِّقُونَ بِهِ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَزَوْجِهِ. So they learn from them how to separate from what? From the husband and wife. And I'm not going to go through the symptoms because this is a topic that is sensitive and there's no household except that they have problems in it. And sometimes the cause of the problem is not always magic. Sometimes it can be just whispers of shaitan. As the Rasul ﷺ has told us, that Iblis puts his throne on the ocean and then he sends his jinn to what? To cause evil and mischief. And the one that can in causing a husband to leave his wife, then he'll be the closest to him. Which indicates that family discord and problems are not only caused by what? By magic, also can be caused by whispers, and sometimes it can be a result of the people themselves. But then there will be other things that when they are found, then you'll be able to detect that there is a spell there. Another type of spell or magic that can be done is what we call a rabt. A rabt is what? When you tie something. And the concept of a rabt is actually a type of magic where you stop a man from having a sexual contact with his wife. Or where you stop a man from having a sexual contact with any woman. And sometimes it can be the opposite. This can result because one of two things. Either the person is possessed by a jinn that likes the person, and therefore because this person is married, what they'll do, they'll try to stop their contact with their partner. And sometimes it is caused by magic, and this can take different forms. For example, they can cause the woman to hate her husband. For example, she will hate his smell, she will hate his sweat. She'll not, once she sees him, she'll feel disgusted, like she'll feel, don't come next to me. Okay, I can't stand your smell. I can't, even he's putting perfume. Whatever he does, she'll just smell him bad. And she'll not let him to come next to her. Or it can cause her not to feel any pleasure when he makes contact with her. At all. She'll not react in any way. And what will happen is that the jinn will actually control the brain nerves and then will press them. So they'll become numb and she'll not be able to react to him. And then he'll feel, what is happening here? He'll feel strange and then he'll hate her, why you don't like me? And then problems will start and then they'll start become distant from each other. Another thing they can do is bleeding. For example, every time he wants to make contact with his wife, she'll start bleeding out of nowhere. And then she's bleeding, he'll not come next to her. Or if it is known to the jinn, they know what days they make contact, for example, then what they may do, suddenly this lady will end up with a lot of gushing blood coming out of her. That's another thing that they can do. Another thing that they can do is that, and they can do the two opposites. I'm going to show you examples of some of the knots, how they do that spell. Another thing that they can do is that he will not be able, when he makes contact, he will feel like he's facing a wall. I'm trying to be as diplomatic as I can. He'll feel as if like there's a wall in front of him. Or what can happen is that he'll feel, even though he can be married to a lady who is, for example, a virgin, he'll feel as if she's not a virgin. And they'll give him that impression. And of course, the types are mentioned, some of you may probably have not come across them. Because the next one is the most common one, which is the fact that the man will not be able to have an erection. And that's another type they do. Sometimes he'll not be able, like if he tries to make sexual intercourse with any other lady, he'll be fine. It will be that lady who is his wife, nothing. Or what can happen if the spell did not work properly is that he will feel numbness in his organ. Or he will feel pain when he does it. He'll feel numbness in the hands, and then he'll feel pain from the waist down in his back, his thighs. And therefore that contact will become something horrible for him to make. It's like someone punching him. And seriously, and then what will happen, because this can happen once and then the wife will tolerate it, or the husband will tolerate it. But if it happens often, what starts happening? They start hating each other. Like she'll say, "What's wrong with you? You don't like me?" You know, and then they'll start distant, and then the issue will grow further than just magic. Will become personal between the husband and the wife. And sometimes what they do, they can actually send two jinn, one that possesses the wife and one that possesses the husband. And then what they will do is that they will take turns. And that's from the tricks. So you'll not be able to know. They will take turns. So sometimes she'll refuse contact with him, sometimes we refuse contact with her. And they'll start thinking, listen, like it's not working out between us. Like, you don't like me, I don't like you. Why do they do that? And that's why I say magic is not psychological. Because magic is based on hiding the plot that you are executing. That's what jinn do. They make it seem like a medical problem. They make it seem like an emotional problem. They make it seem like a psychological. Get away with it. And that's why magic cannot be what? It's discreet in its nature. How do they do it? They use knots. And these are the different types of knots that they do. All right? And they'll use different types of knots to tie particular nerves in the human body. Sounds makes you realize how much far you are in your knowledge as a human. All right? They'll actually get the string, and then they'll have to blow. They'll blow. Again, they'll have to read particular types of spells, and then they'll do particular types of knots. And then, for example, ربطت فلانة ابن فلانة عن فلانة بنت فلانة كما ربطت هذه العقدة. And then they'll say, you know, I knotted the organ of Fulan from the son of Fulana, from his wife Fulana bint Fulana, or all the children of, all the daughters of Eve, depends on the type of spell. Like I tied this knot and then look, they can one, and sometimes they can actually repeat it. So if, for example, here there's around 12 of them, and they'll do it, and do it, and do it. And the more they do it, the stronger the knot will be on the person. And then when we, and as reciters deal with it, the process takes longer and become more effective against him. And of course, this comes according to how much money they pay. And the more they pay him, the more evil they do. May Allah curse them. Another thing that they do is what we call sihr al-tahayyuj. What is sihr al-tahayyuj? You know, some of the ulama say that they say we cannot believe that someone that has any dot inside him, there's no dot of iman inside that person, they'll do that type of magic. That type of magic is basically to cause the person to have such a sexual desire that he can only satisfy it through zina. So it's actually what you can call an arousal spell. Arousal spell. And Ibn al-Qayyim, may Allah have mercy upon him, he speaks about a story that happened. He mentioned in his book, Rawdat al-Muhabbin. He said there was a son that was very good to his father. He goes, Jabir ibn Nuh narrates, that was sitting in the Medina in the city of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then a man, he was sitting with a friend of his, an old man went past, and then his friend got up and he said, A'zam Allahu ajrak, you know, he made ta'ziyah of him. And then the man started crying and he said, what's wrong? He goes, his son died. He said to him, but he's grieving too much. I'm trying to rush a bit. He said, we're grieving too much. He goes, yes. Do you know how his son died? He said, how? And then he told him, his son was a good looking man and he was loved by a married lady. And she tried more than once to convince him to actually make contact with her. And then he refused. And he kept on refusing until she became desperate. And he said to her, I'll never come next to you. So she went to a magician. She went to a female magician. And she gave a lot of money. He said that I want him to die for me. Die, not exactly like physically die, but like to have such a strong sexual arousal that he'll not be able to satisfy except when he comes next to me. And that spell was done for the son. And then the story is that once the son was sitting with his father, and then suddenly he's sitting, and then the thoughts, and that's what will happen. People will have, how can I describe it? They'll have a rush of thoughts that will go through their heads that they will not be able to ignore easily. Like you'll be sitting, And then like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different types of thoughts will go through your head. You know, go to that lady, go to that lady, go to the lady, look at that lady, look at this, look at that, look at that. Will just stream through the head and will overwhelm the person. That particular son sitting with his father, and after that spell was made for him, he said, and he started finding himself getting aroused. So he got up and he made wudu and he prayed. I said to him, Dad, I'm feeling a lot of things about this, about a particular lady. He goes, get a rope and tie me up. To feel, reach the stage where he will not be able. He wants to get up, and that's what they'll do. They call jalb. Jalb is to bring. They'll make a spell, and that's a type of a love spell, where they'll say, bring him to me. Where the person will be restless, until he'll just get up and go. And he may go just look at that person and just look at them. And then he'll feel better. And find any excuse to speak to them. Wallah, I know a guy, he's an old man. He was suffering from, he said, I don't know why. He said, she's ugly and I never liked her. Wallah. He said, she's ugly and I never liked her. And I've been seeing her for years. I don't know why now I cannot resist calling her. And I know that she's ugly, but I feel desire towards her. That's an arousal type of magic. To bring the person to that person. Another thing that they can do, now I forgot to mention that in relation to the rabt one, to the sexual one, is that they can cause the woman to have a rash, to have like a rash, for example. And then you'll not be able to come next to her. That's something else that they can use. The one can be done differently. Can be done for a specific lady, can be done for a specific man, like it happened to that particular man. It can be done that he will have to commit zina. It can be done that they will encourage him to go for any other woman except his wife. It can be done for men. And wallah, I came across websites, I'm not going to mention what, in Western countries, where the spells, arousal spells, they call them sexual spells, sex spells. You want to increase your sexual ability? Buy that spell, and they will specify, do you want it for homosexual, male? Use that. You want it for homosexual, like lesbian, female? Use that. You want it for normal sexual people? Use that. Different types of spell. What is happening? Do you know what is happening, brothers? They are using different types of jinn that like different things. There are jinn that like men, there are jinn that like women. They can be females. So what they'll do is that they'll get a magic spell that matches that jinn with that person. And then will be a combination of a spell and a personal interest from the jinn into what? Into the other one. And they'll know exactly what to stream through the head of that particular person. The type of spell that can be done is the spell of sickness. And part of this is the spell of death. What's death? Spell of death is basically a spell of sickness which is very bad. They'll ask him, they say, I want this person to suffer all the time of his life. So what will happen is that suddenly this person will start getting sick. And he'll feel pain. The doctors they'll take him to doctors and they'll check on him and no pain there. They'll do scans, they'll do x-rays. There's nothing there. The person will go back home and they will start feeling pain again. And then what will doctors do? They'll start guessing. Oh, I think it's this. And that's the first type of spell that the Shaykh, may Allah have mercy upon him, taught me on. When I started learning from him, he had a lady that had that particular type of spell. The lady went through 3 different types of surgeries for no reason. Check and she'll scream from her pain. They'll say, I think it's the Zayd. What do you call Zayd in appendix? Yes. They'll cut. They'll take it out. They took it out, but there's nothing in it. There's nothing wrong with it. Pain from there. And what is different here is that, first of all, you'll check medically and you'll not find anything. And that's a negation that it's a spell. Because if it is physical, then it will be physical. The doctors will see. But if it is caused by the jinn, then there's no pain. What is there is that they are controlling your nerves. And then this person, and then this person will start feeling sickness, not in a particular area, but in different areas of their body. Will not always be in one place. They'll just give different types of sufferings to this particular person. And that's that's the type that you guys have heard of, which is they talk about voodoo type of spell. And voodoo type of spell, or what we call it sihr al-duma, the doll's magic, is actually they use a doll, and I'm going to show you some examples of that, inshallah ta'ala. And that can be a magic that can be done. Another one that can be done is for separation. That's very common. Sometimes a person will love someone, will go to someone else, and then he would want to get married. That's the type of spell that can be put. So a fiance will hate her husband, will hate her fiance. Or a girl who is looking for marriage and she's interested in marriage, whenever someone comes and asks for her hand, she'll refuse. And the jinn will use different styles depending on what they like. So some jinn, what they do, they'll make her see the person ugly. Some jinn, what they do, they'll threaten her in her dreams. If you marry this person, I'm going to do that. Some of them, what they do is that they'll play with her mind, look for faults in him, and make her. Or they may let them take place and then cause problems between them. As a result, they'll just each other. Sometimes what happens is that they start seeing jinn. And I know it happened, and unfortunately the guy, he got scared for himself. I can't blame people, every person. And he left the girl. And after he left the girl, she went back. She was okay. But as long as he is with her, she was seeing them, she was hearing them, so forth, because she was engaged to this particular person. Another type of spell is the feast spell. And that happens to some people, for example. Suddenly, he's scared of everything. Scared of everything that is around them. And sometimes they'll start getting scared of death out of nowhere. I'm going to die soon. Everyone's going to die. Yeah, I'm going to die tomorrow. And all they'll do, they'll start putting thoughts in their head. You're going to die now. What's going to happen to you? You're going to go to hell. And then that's also another type of spell that they can put against, that's another type of spell or magic that can be used against the person. What I'm going to do, inshallah, I'll conclude with that, is I'm going to show you, or actually I was going to go through the different methods that they use, but before that we'll speak about some means of protection, all right, against magic, because I think that's more important. First type of protection, and that's something from the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, not from me, which is in Bukhari, the one who eats in the morning, yani at Fajr, 7 dates from the dates of Medina. Sab'at tamrat ajwa. Okay? He will not be harmed by any poison or any magic that will be casted on him. That's one. And the hadith is found in Bukhari. The problem, it's unfortunate, that now the people in Medina know this. So suddenly the rutab of Medina, they say that's ajwa, and that will be 100 riyal, and that will be normal, and that will be 25. Ya akhi, it's not different, because that's ajwa. It's unfortunate, subhanAllah, that happens. The Rasul spoke about this particular type of date. And when you see it, you'll know it. For those who have tasted it, it's different, subhanAllah, its color is different, and its taste is different. Another thing that is protection for you is wudu. To be always in a state of wudu. When you break your wudu, you renew your wudu. Another thing that helps is praying the salawat in jama'ah. And unfortunately, that's something that is difficult for us here in Australia because of the fact that our work is far from our masajid. Praying in jama'ah, salawat, gives an excellent protection that will not come next to you. That's why the Rasul says in the hadith, those who pray, any three that pray in jama'ah, they meet together, and then the time of salah enters. Except that the shaitan will have access to them, and he can harm them. Nothing that can help, and nothing that's a is qiyam al-layl, for you to pray night prayer. If you pray night prayers, they will not be able to come. They will not be able to come. They will send whoever they will send. Whoever they will send. If you are consistent on your qiyam, no jinn will be allowed to come next to you. They can see you from a distance, they can track you, they can follow you, but they will not be able to come next to you. Another thing that is good is adhkar. For example, before entering the bathroom, Bismillah, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubuthi wal khaba'ith. Okay? Memorize this and teach it to your children from a young age. Even if you can't speak, tell them to say Bismillah. Teach them, give them that, get them into that habit of mentioning them of Allah before they enter. Another thing that you can isti'adha from the shaitan all the time. Another thing that you can do is for those who are married, and I know inshallah you're all, but we're talking to those who don't do it, is that make the dua that Rasul taught us. Bismillah, Allahumma jannibna shaitan wa jannib shaitana ma razaqtana. Oh Allah, and if you can't say in Arabic, say it in English until you learn how to say it. Oh Allah, say Bismillah, by the name of Allah I begin. Oh Allah, protect us from the shaitan, keep him away from, and keep the shaitan away from what you're going to give us. Another thing that you can do, and that's important, always sleep on wudu. Whenever you get sleep, always sleep on wudu. And I have a story with a sister. She's possessed, and the jinn was interested in her. And then I said to her, you have to make wudu, like before you sleep. SubhanAllah, she'll make wudu. As soon as she wants to sleep, she'll lose her wudu. So she'll get up and make wudu again. What would he do? He'll give her the impression that she's passing wind. So what she'll have? She'll get up and sleep. And he'll, SubhanAllah, but she was a very strong girl. So she'll make wudu, until he gave up. Okay? Make wudu before you sleep. Okay, make wudu before you sleep. Read Ayat al-Kursi. And then start reading whatever you know from the Qur'an. As the Rasul has said, the one who reads Ayat al-Kursi, as the Rasul approved, and then he sleeps on wudu and reads Ayat al-Kursi, and then he sleeps on, will have a protection on him, and the shaitan will not be able to come next to him. Another thing that is good is to read the first five verses of Surah Al-Baqarah, the last 3 verses of Surah Al-Baqarah, Ayat al-Kursi, and the 2 verses after them, read them in the morning and read them after Maghrib. After Salat al-Maghrib is also a protection for you. Another thing that you can do, La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu lahul mulku wa lahul hamdu wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. If you can't do it 100 times, do it 10 times. In the morning, once, and at night, at Maghrib, once, or after Asr, once. 10. That's the least that you should be doing. Because the Rasul says, whoever repeats this 100 times, another way, La ilaha illallah la sharika lah, lahul mulku wa lahul hamdu, yuhyi wa yumit wa huwa ala kulli shay'. The hadith, the Rasul said, the one who does it, he'll get the reward as if he freed 10 slaves. Okay? And then he'll get 100 hasanat, and then 100 sayyat will be dropped, or will be decreased, or erased from his record. And then the shaitan will not come next to him. And then no one will be better than him except the one that what? Which teaches us that the concept of dhikr is based on what? Is based on what? On increase. Some brothers, may Allah guide them, they say no, 100. They say the Rasul said, and whoever increases more. If you want to do 100, do 100. If you want to do 1,000, do 1,000. Do as much as you want. The concept of dhikr is up to you. Alright? That's another thing that can protect. Also, isti'adha from the shaitan. أعوذ بالله العظيم وبوجهه الكريم وبسلطانه القديم من الشيطان الرجيم. Is also the Rasul used to make before he enters the masjid. Also, in the morning, Bismillah الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. I'm saying it slowly. At least 3 times. Morning, 3 times. And if you can do them before you sleep, it will be something that is good. Also, before you enter your house, and when you leave your house, and when you enter your house, there's a lot of adhkar that the Rasul has taught us. One of the small ones, Bismillah, tawakkaltu ala Allah, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. What will be said to him? Kufita, wa wuqita, wa hudit. Kufit, you'll be protected. Yani, the evil of people. Wa wuqita, and you are shielded. Wa hudit, and you are guarded, and the shaitan will say to his The shaitan speak will say to each other, how could we come next to a person that Allah has given him that? Okay? Kufita wa wuqita wa hudit. Another thing, Bismillah wa lajna, Allahumma inni as'aluka khayra al-khuliji wa khayra al-makhraji. Allah, I ask you the best entrance and the best exit. Bismillah wa lajna wa bismillah kharajna wa Allahi rabbana tawakkalna. That's another dua that you can make entering the house and leaving the house, because the Rasul ﷺ says that they will not be allowed to enter into the house. Only if you already have a spell on you, and now you're making that different story. Because they're already in. Okay, but they'll give you more protection. But if you are fine, then that should not harm you. Also, أعوذ بكلمات التامات شر ما خلق. Also, أعوذ بكلمات الله التامة من كل شيطان وهامة ومن كل عين لامة. Also, أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات التي لا يجاوزهن بر ولا فاجر. Alright? Also another protection. اللهم رب السماوات وما أضلل ورب الأراضين وما أقلل ورب الشياطين وما أضلل كن لنا جارا وحافظا يا أرحم الراحمين. Do you know the book, The Fortress of the Muslim? Okay, I think it's cheap. Is it that expensive? Okay, buy it and memorize it. This is your excellent source of protection. If you are someone that wants to be protected from the evils of the jinn and the evils of magic. I know my time is up, so inshallah I wanted to mention this stuff. What we'll do, we'll go through some of the. Okay, quickly. See this? What's this? That's a doll. This can be used for magic. And that's like voodoo. What they do is that they'll read the spell, and then they'll assume this is. And then, for example, what will happen is that they will put the spell on it. That's an external type of magic. Or they'll put needles through it. And whenever they hit the needle, you'll feel pain. That's something that gets used. And I'll mix them. They're not all from Arabic, actually, even from other cultures. This is from the Jews. Okay, can you see the writing here? That's actually a type of magic that is used by the Jews, and then this is what you wear. And notice that how this is similar to the Kabbalah that people wear. And this will be somewhat similar to the concept of hirz, of hijab, that people wear. And of course, wearing anything like this is actually shirk, as the Rasul ﷺ has indicated. Another thing that they can use is, look at this. Okay. This is not food. Okay, this is a lizard. See here, what is this? Is actually where they died and they got him out. What they do sometimes is they'll do the spell, and then they'll kill it, and then they'll put a lizard, and then they'll bury it. Why do they do that? To make it impossible for those who fear Allah and use the ruqyah to find the spell. So even if you dig, you look, you see a lizard. I'm not looking for lizard, I'm looking for paper. I'll put it in the lizard. Sometimes what they do, and may Allah curse them for that, they put it in the mouth of a dead person. He gets wrapped and he gets buried. And that's a type of magic which is called a matfoon, the buried type of magic. That's also something that gets used. And these are used by non-Muslims. See the symbols? That's also the type of spell that gets used. This is something that unfortunately some Muslims use. And they say that's common in the Indian peninsula. And what they'll do, they'll make the person put it on themselves. And then when he wraps with himself with that thing, they'll use it to break the spell sometimes. See the different writing and different symbols that they use. This is something that magicians themselves use. What is written on it is the different spells that they use, and they'll put it on, and that's when they're summoning the actual jinn. And sometimes what they'll do something like this, and they give it to you in a garment. So they'll give you a present, for example, and then something will be put inside the collar or in the way or in the they call it the bitana, the interior part of the actual garment. That's similar to what is before. That's a type of spell with hair. See what they do? They collect the hair. Okay, this is a female's hair. And what they do, some of them, subhanAllah, are very sly. They take it hair by hair and collect it, and then they give it to the magician. Then the magician, what he does, he makes the spell on the string, and then he ties the knots with the what? With the hair. And that connects on you. Pour eggs. Sometimes it can be made on eggs. Particular spells will put on eggs, and then the eggs will be buried, and sometimes what they do, they actually burn them. And that's some of the symbols. And this is what I mean when I say talasim, what I showed you before, and this. And look, this is a love one. Can you see the heart? Can you see the heart? That's a heart, that's a love spell. Of course, you will not know that. Whoever put the spell on, will not know that. Okay, this is a UFO. No, it's not. This actually is a type of doll that they make. And see the needles? See where they actually strike it. They tie it with the spell. So what they do, they pretend that this is you. And then they will tie, after the magic, they will tie the knots on you. And they will get the needles, and they will strike it in particular. For example, in the head, he used to have pain in the head, in the cheek, in the heart. See how they put in the heart? And that's how they have them trying to kill the person. And that's an attempt for them to kill the person. That's why they're striking the heart. And then they strike the lungs and different areas. It's sad, but you should know about this. What's this? Shoes. Can you see what's in it? Do you know what's this writing? That's a Qur'an. They write the Qur'an on the shoes and then they wear it. And that's some of the things that they do so they can please the devils. May Allah curse them. Okay, so they will wear it and walk around with it. And they'll do that for a particular period. And then they will call them. And then they will come to them and serve them. This is similar to basic voodoo. That's something that is common amongst the Arabs. Instead of a doll, the paper on the shape of a person, then they write the spell on it. And then also if they want to kill him, for example, they'll strike the needles in different areas of their body. And there's a lot. And I didn't mean to have this one the last, but again, may Allah curse them. That's degrading of the Qur'an, where there's particular verses from the Qur'an, and that what they do, they use filthy blood. You know when I say filthy blood? That's menstrual blood. Okay? And they punish the Qur'an. With it. And then this will be buried. And then as a result, the devils will be willing to do anything that this kafir, disbelieving, fasiq, munafiq, dal, mudil, magician, and not a sheikh, okay, would want them to do. Be careful of these people. These people are people that do not fear Allah. And these people are people that have sold themselves and their religion to the shayateen. I can speak a lot, different types of magic. I just mentioned the most important things, and as you can see. And I wanted to mention things that, inshallah, you can use for your own protection. Do not fall in the traps. Whenever you have a problem, remember that it's in the hands of Allah. As Allah says, وَمَا هُمْ بِضَارِينَ بِهِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. And verily, they will not be able to harm anyone except by the will of Allah. So if you want protection, you return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? One more point I want to mention, that's the last one, is that something that I mentioned in relation to possession, I'm going to have to mention it quickly. Some types of hijabat or huruz, they wear them, they will contain the Qur'an. Is this allowed or not allowed? There's two opinions amongst the ulama. Some that say it's not allowed, some that say it is allowed. And I am of the opinion that it is allowed, but I say that it's not allowed for a different reason. Why? Because this type of huruz now, that are used as traps for people. Some what they do, write it with the menstrual blood. They'll write Qur'an with menstrual blood. And they'll make you wear it. And they'll say to you, look, Qur'an. You look. So what would you do? Wear it. Sometimes they will actually make the Qur'an in it. They'll change the words of the Qur'an. Letters. They'll take out letters. And they'll tell you, look, this is Qur'an. And they say, Qur'an. Right? Sometimes what they do, they mix Qur'an with symbols. All right? And they'll show you. And then you look and you'll say, what? Qur'an. It is a. So even though I personally believe that the Qur'an has an effect, whether it is drink, whether you take it in drink, or whether you wear it, or whether you read it, or whether you carry it, I say these hijabat are haram, min bab sad al-dhara'i'. This is the opinion that I follow in relation to this. Because people cannot be trusted anymore. People are using different tricks, and people are using the Qur'an itself as what? As a mean for them to do the spells and do the evil. So avoid that, inshallah ta'ala. That's all I have to say in relation to this. I ask Allah to accept from me and from you, and to make this action sincere for His sake, and to reward us for it the way that He deserves, the way that He would like to reward His servants. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.